What you saw last week after week 2 was discomfort. What you're seeing now, that's panic. And you've got this really small window before people just start to give up if they go 0-4 to trade low for some of their top players. So we're going through 5 buy low candidates to get before week 4 fantasy football. And I'm doing everything I can to get us ready for week 4. So please go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, the first guy I want to touch on is a guy that I've already discussed multiple times in the past couple of weeks with Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Listen, when I came on here after week 2 and I said to trade for Brian Thomas Jr., he was coming off of like 20 targets in the first 2 weeks. Brian Thomas Jr. has had nothing to show for it yet, though. This guy has really not done anything, and that is including week 3. So when you look at the first 2 weeks in particular with Brian Thomas Jr., he had 19 total targets, but only 5 receptions and 1 touchdown that was actually on the ground. So this guy's max through 2 weeks has been 9 points in a full PPR format. But then in week 3, he comes out and he has 2 catches for 55 yards on 6 total targets. So there's a couple of things that I want to take away from his performance in week 3. Number one is that he still is continuing to be the team's preferred number 1 target and Trevor Lawrence's number 1 read. Now, there's definitely something going on there why they are not connecting, but there's no other argument to who his wide receiver 1 is. It is Brian Thomas Jr. Now, the other thing that I took away from this game, and it was towards the end of the game, he actually caught a really big pass from Trevor Lawrence that put them into position to win that football game on Sunday. So he definitely did show signs of improvement and getting better as a player. And we know how electric Brian Thomas Jr. is with the ball in his hands. Well, that's what we saw from him in week 3. So I think that as long as they continue to target Brian Thomas Jr., which nothing would suggest that they won't. Parker Washington, yes, he will serve a weekly involvement, but Diami Brown might miss a couple weeks with an injury, and Travis Hunter just simply has not been involved enough yet. Like, I didn't think that he wouldn't be this involved. Brian Thomas Jr. looks like this team's number 1 wide receiver. So since we went over this last week, I'll recover trade ideas because things have changed again. George Pickens and Tony Pollard for Brian Thomas Jr. and Alvin Kamara, I think, is a great trade offer. George Pickens is looking to be the wide receiver 1 in Dallas for the next several weeks. This is a rental, though, as a wide receiver 1. I would rather take the payoff, particularly if you're 2-1 or 3-0, to get Brian Thomas Jr. for the long run for your fantasy football playoffs and just the second half of the season for Brian Thomas Jr. to become a true wide receiver 1 in fantasy football again, because again, he's getting the workload for it. And Tony Pollard for Alvin Kamara, I do think is an overall upgrade. It might not be as big of an upgrade if you want to know the truth, but I still do think Alvin Kamara's efficiency is still better than Tony Pollard's, and they're both basically on just as good of an offense as each other. So I don't see that big of a difference there between the two, but I think a lot of people getting George Pickens for Brian Thomas Jr. at this point might consider that a W, when in reality, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is the W in that trade. Now, our next guy that I want to go through here is coming off a little bit of a rough week, but I would not say he has been awful this year or anything. But Bucky Irving, I do think it's a good time to go trade for Bucky Irving. So if you look at the first couple of weeks for Bucky Irving, again, nothing bad. Like, he's the running back 8 in fantasy football in full PPR, and this guy last week had 13.9 fantasy points in a full PPR format. Now, I do think there's going to be some disappointment around Bucky manager owners because he was a second-round pick in all likelihood in your fantasy league. And through 3 weeks in a full PPR format, Bucky Irving has put up 14.5 points in week 1, 18.1 points in week 2, and 13.9 points in week 3. So again, he is not doing bad. He is still a really good running back in fantasy, and you may not be able to make this move happen. But I do believe that if there's a team that has him, that's 0-3 or 1-2, and again, is desperate right now, there is an opportunity to trade for him here. So the reason why you want to make this move is because just look at week 3 and the usage that this guy had. He had 25 total rushing attempts and 4 targets. That's almost 30 opportunities in a game. Then you look at what he did in week 2, 17 rushing attempts for 6 targets. This guy basically is getting 20 opportunities on a gamely basis. And in week 1, he had 14 rushing attempts for 4 targets. So again, this guy is basically averaging 20 plus opportunities on a gamely basis. With that type of volume and on the offense Tampa Bay is on, there's just no way that it won't break his way at some point for a massive breakout game of like 25 to 30 points. And given the fact that Mike Evans is set to miss a couple of games at least, I believe Bucky Irving's involvement only continues to go up. And I think you saw a little bit of that in week 3 once Mike Evans went down out of that game. So I think now if you're going to have a chance to trade for Bucky Irving, it's got to be right now. I think it's the right time to do it. And again, I think if you get a team that's 1-2 or 0-3 with Bucky Irving, you could make a move like this happen. Javonte Williams and Malik Neighbors for Bucky Irving and Rome Odunze. So Malik Neighbors obviously has the first round capital, but I've said this for the past several weeks. It's hard to rely on Malik Neighbors when his quarterback is Russell Wilson, and even when they do make the inevitable switch to Jackson Dart, we don't know what that's going to look like for Malik Neighbors. So I would rather just move off of him, get a second-round pick with Bucky, and then get Rome Odunze, who is actually outperforming Malik Neighbors on pretty much a weekly basis except for week 2. So I think that's a good move because you give up Javonte Williams in addition, and he has exceeded expectations. So I think that this trade might work out if you can get someone who's panicking and just needs an answer, particularly at the wide receiver position, and wants to feel like they're getting an enormous upgrade with Malik Neighbors. Now, it's important to know, guys, this is just one trade idea that I have for any particular team. But if you want your specific team broken down and you want to go through trade acquisitions to make, waiver wire targets to go after, any steps to take to make your particular team better, you can actually get a full team breakdown from me when you join fsroundup.com as a premium subscriber. And after your 12-day free trial is over and you are an official customer with us at FS Roundup, I will give you a full team breakdown. And the good thing is, over that 12-day free trial, go use the automatic waiver wire tool for free during that time. You will see the true value of it and how it is saving people's teams in 2025, as we have been told a bunch by customers already. So go over there to fsroundup.com. There's a link in the comments below. Sign up for the free trial. After the free trial is over, I will give you a full team breakdown, and use that automatic waiver wire tool, because the last thing you want to do is become a guy like this.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the 3rd year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing.
Oh, no.
Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, the next guy I want to go through is going to be a really gross one, but I think the taste in people's mouths that Chase Brown is leaving after week 3 is enough to go trade for him. Now, Chase Brown, I discussed this last week. After Joe Burrow went down, everybody's upside in Cincinnati absolutely went down. Like, there's no argument for the other end of the spectrum, which is, oh yeah, actually without Joe Burrow, their upside's going to go up. Everybody agrees that the upside without Joe Burrow is not there for those guys. But I had said this leading into the week last week that I am not really willing to trade Chase Brown right now because the guy's value is as low as it's been all year, and he's also in a position to where if you look at the first 2 weeks of usage over on FS Roundup, what you will see is this guy has averaged at least 19 attempts per game, 16 attempts on the ground in week 2, and 3 targets in week 2 as well. Then in week 1, he had 21 rush attempts and 3 targets. So this guy is getting the very consistent workload, and up to week 3, he had not seen real competition in the backfield. Now, I do want to admit this. In week 3, there was more involvement with Samaje Perine, and there was also more involvement for the first time with Taj Brooks. But I still stand by Chase Brown not being a sell, actually a buy at this point, because if you look at the work, he still had 15 opportunities yesterday, and yes, they got crushed by the Minnesota Vikings. This is the reason why people are going to trade Chase Brown this week for whatever they can get, because the taste he left in people's mouths, along with the rest of the Bengals team, it's going to really affect a lot of people who lost their weeks this week. But I'll tell you this. The reality is they're not going to lose many more games that bad. Minnesota's defense is really good. Now, Denver, they have them next week, and they might have another beatdown. But after that, it lightens up a little bit when they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 7, the New York Jets in Week 8, the Chicago Bears in Week 9. They're not going to be that inept offensively for that many more weeks. I believe that Chase Brown, it is the time to buy a player that is seeing a massive workload for the majority of the season, and a player that is still really good and I believe has a lot of pass catching utility, particularly in full PPR leagues. So again, right now is the time to do it. I think you could get Tyreek Hill and Cam Skattebo for Chase Brown and Jacoby Myers. That is an upgrade on both fronts right there, because Cam Skattebo is coming off another week where he was really good, and he looks like he's going to be the lead back moving forward, especially with Tyrone Tracy probably out for a little bit because of a shoulder injury. And Tyreek Hill with the big name, I think people would rather have him over Jacoby Myers, even though they probably shouldn't. But Chase Brown, this is the lowest his value has been, and I think it is a great opportunity to buy this guy low. Now, the next guy I want to go through is going to be Ladd McConkey, who, again, I think he's leaving a lot of bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think Ladd McConkey is in this position right now to where, of course, you drafted this guy in the second round expecting him to take the sophomore leap after a really good rookie year. Well, Ladd McConkey has not done that exactly. Ladd McConkey has been pretty much their third-tier option in Los Angeles behind Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston. Ladd McConkey's first 3 weeks in a full PPR format consist of 13.4 points in Week 1, 9.8 points in Week 2, and 8.1 points in Week 3. So this guy is not necessarily crushing your team, but considering the draft capital, he has not helped many people win their games in 2025 so far. But I think the important part to remember here is that the guy's target share is still there. 9 targets in Week 1, 5 in Week 2, and 7 in Week 3. Now, 2 out of those 3 matchups, the Chiefs and the Denver Broncos, those were competitive games. The Week 2 matchup where he only had 5 targets, that was not a very competitive game. I think that Ladd McConkey will pop off at some point. And I think that a lot of people can't really see past what they've seen through the first 3 weeks. And honestly, if I was a Ladd McConkey owner on any of my teams, which I'm not, I don't know if I would be able to see past it quite as easily. But I think from an outside perspective, looking in on this one, everything is there. The guy is still running a lot of routes. If you go to FS Roundup and look at the important stats, snap counts, and routes run, this guy is still at the top of his position on the team in both of those categories. He's still very involved on a passing down basis in this offense, and one of these days he will hit the big one. I believe he still has a 25-point game in him somewhere, and just the way the Chargers offense is playing right now, I want pieces on that offense. So right now, I think you could trade someone like Garrett Wilson and Chuba Hubbard for Ladd McConkey and Jordan Mason. With Chuba Hubbard, you're going to be getting a perceived upgrade over Jordan Mason because he's a rental right now. I think Jordan Mason probably is continuing to be involved moving forward after Aaron Jones comes back after his IR stint too. But I think Garrett Wilson and Ladd McConkey, they're neck and neck. A lot of people probably watching this might take Garrett Wilson. In fact, I'm kind of curious to know what people think about that. Garrett Wilson or Ladd McConkey in the chat. Because for me, I would rather take the guy on the better offense that is getting involved still and has the big upside to hit a 30-point week, which Garrett Wilson, in theory, I guess has because he has so much targets. But I would rather take the guy on the better team, and that's why I would make a trade like this right now. Now, our last guy, this only applies to a couple of people. If you are 3-0 and you are really sitting pretty, or even if you're 2-1, but you just think that your team is killer right now and came off one loss that you shouldn't have lost, you need to go acquire Rashee Rice right now. Rashee Rice needs to be on your team because what is happening right now is a lot of people who drafted Rashee Rice, well, they had to spend mid-round draft capital to get this guy. So that means a mid-round pick is offering no value. And a lot of leagues do not have an IR slot for suspended players. So he is taking up a bench spot for a lot of people's teams right now. And I would be willing to bet that there are a lot of 0-3 or 1-2 teams that are starting to panic right now with Rashee Rice on their bench, just taking up a roster spot. That is not acceptable for people when they are trying to make big moves and trying to win big games. So Rashee Rice, he's already been out for 3 games. He's got 3 more games to go. So that means in week 7, he returns to the Kansas City Chiefs lineup. And the bottom line is this. If you have not watched the Chiefs offense, I can't tell you how much you need to watch it because this offense has nothing going for them. Nothing. They have Tyquan Thornton as a deep threat. Juju Smith-Schuster occasionally makes a catch, and Hollywood Brown is not good. They are starving for a wide receiver 1 in this offense. And even when Xavier Worthy comes back, he will not supplant Rashee Rice as their lead wide receiver 1. You can count on that. Rashee Rice is the perfect trade target for teams that are 3-0 or 2-1. Go make your team better today by giving George Pickens and J.K. Dobbins for Rashee Rice and Jordan Mason. Again, George Pickens is a very doable asset right now to trade because Pickens will be involved for the next foreseeable future while CeeDee Lamb is out as their wide receiver 1. I believe that this is a very realistic trade just based on Pickens alone. And if you threw in J.K. Dobbins for Jordan Mason, both of those guys I think have an argument to be rental players, but I would prefer Jordan Mason because I think he has a better long season than J.K. Dobbins does. I cannot stress this enough. 3-0 teams and 2-1 teams that are really good need to go get Rashee Rice right now. So let me know who your top target is in trades before week 4 fantasy football. And if you want to see the top waiver pickups to go get before week 4, click on this video right here.